Hello, welcome back. Another painting day. I'm on holiday and we're going to do some detailing. Dry brushing actually to start with. There's 3 of these blazing skeletons to deal with, and so that's really what the task is for today. Very chilled out today. I probably will talk about something. I thought I would talk about the rogue, and I'm going to put up a poll on all the rest. Do my usual thing. So grab your paints, your miniatures, or get comfortable with some food and drink and just chat along with me or watch while I do my very best to try to make these come to life, or at least look more than just a great huge matte colour, because right now they just look blue, green and red. So yeah, I know I'm going a little odd with the colour scheme, but I thought it would be a fun idea. Anyway, let's crack in. Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I'm on holiday, so I thought I would paint some miniatures. I started doing the blazing skeletons. I have 3, so it's going to probably take me a little bit of time, but most of the basic colour is now on. I thought it was going to be a lot easier. It wasn't. It required me to I'd put a primer on these, so these have been primed. I used a spray can for the primer. And then after the spray can primer, I decided I would work my way into a white to make sure the colours were quite bright. But discovered that the lighter colours just don't cover very well. So, which I kind of knew, but I was hoping that I had picked colours that would work. So I've had to go with darker colours. So I'm going to have to kind of go in reverse now. And so I'll go from dark to light, which is kind of look a little strange. I think it's going to mean that I'm going to need to have sort of a lot more light white colours at the tips of the flames. I think that's probably what's going to be going on here. So you heard me go on about this enough. So yes, there are 2 coats of blue, green or red, depending on which one it is. 1 coat of white, and I did put a primer on before all of that. And I'm going to be using the dry brush most of today, I would imagine, unless we get far enough along that I can actually do something else. Okay, so I started with this Cantor blue. Citadel paints suck. I'm going to be shifting over to Ethereal blue, and I think that's the right decision. I'm just trying to look at the transition. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll go after. Okay, yeah, I'm going to go with this one instead. Frost blue. Hello, prepare, cook and survive. Hello, Dungeons and Chronics. How are you? Hopefully you're having a good day. I am about to tackle. Now, I've also decided that I can't wash off the dry brush too often, because it just won't be dry anymore. It's not going to work. So I'm going to have to be very careful. I'm going to be fairly aggressive with how I put the paint on. And we'll see if that works. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, let's brush off. There we go. And I thought it would be fun if... okay, there's some come off. Okay. Let's start with... yep. Okay, let's just tackle flamey stuff. Very quick, broad, whack, whack, whack. Nothing too fancy going on here. So if you thought I was going to do something amazing... No, not really. I'm just whacking some paint on to pull out the details. I will pick out the skeleton later, for those of you who are wondering. That is the plan. Is it a good plan? I hope so. I think that's the best way I've seen it done out of all the methods that I've seen used for doing this, is like start with that. Okay. Alright, let's do that again. I think on the back I'm going to need to put a little bit more on. So yeah, the rogue. The rogue, I think, out of for 5e is probably, out of all of the classes, the one that leads the least amount of work. I don't know if people agree with me, but I think it's the one that generally people are fairly happy with, and I think it's because it's got a balance of all the different things you want. You know, it's got a lot of the fighting stuff. It's got a lot of the role play, because it's a skill monkey essentially. And that's how it's been built, as a skill monkey. It's got lots of different things it can do. So much like a caster who has lots of spells, cantrips and so forth that can do different things. That's why it works. Okay, let's move on to another colour. We're moving to the Ethereal blue. I'm moving quite quickly, and I am probably not going to switch colours and wait for it to dry. So if you're wondering what's going on, Fred, that's what's going on. This is a very odd looking colour. I don't know how this is going to work. I just need to brush off this blue as much as I possibly can so there's not much of it left. And then we'll try this one. This might be just a bit much. We'll see. So one of the first things I thought, and with the rogue, is that it would be good if the rogue was one of those classes that was good with traps. So setting traps, we don't usually hear very much about traps being set by a rogue. It seems to be one of those things that has been left off. I'm going to want it being completely painted after this. Okay, so broad strokes on the biggest areas where the flames are before I lose the vast majority of the paint. That worked out pretty good. Not too bad at all. I actually think that worked out quite nicely. Okay. Alright, so that's that colour. Next colour. This is going to be the ghostly blue. And I'll see if this works. Come on, baby. So this is our next colour down. And brush off, brush off. Putting phone on charger, still watching, gonna get my painting as well. No problems. Prepare, cook and survive. You do your painting. It's been stormy. We've had floods here in New Zealand, so it's kind of crazy stuff right now. So the fact that I'm painting is probably a good thing, because I can't really do much about anything else. I can read a book, of course, but yeah, there aren't too many options at this present time. It's starting to clear up. Hopefully it stays that way long enough for me to better go outside. So yes, setting traps. And I was thinking about the rogue in terms of setting traps, and I think it should be able to set pretty much all types of traps. There shouldn't be too much of a restriction on that. I want it to be able to pick up and use just about, or set up any kind of trap. Not just wilderness, but traps that you would find in a dungeon, pretty standard sort of stuff. I think all of those sorts of things really work for the concept of the rogue. So setting traps, and I know that traps generally are you find traps, you disarm traps, but I actually think it needs to go beyond that. I think setting traps, there needs to be something in the character progression that talks about you being able to set traps and do it more efficiently and effectively than somebody else. Okay, that's that colour. I'm going to go to yet another colour. This is Gelatinous blue. This is lighter again. So the transitions you might have noticed are quite a few. So yes, of course, the rogue should be able to find traps, disarm traps, but I think also destroy traps. I think out of any class, this is the one class that should be able to do that more efficiently and effectively than anybody else. So that would be my next go-to, is to make sure that they have that built into the character progression. Being more... Crim's expecting more storms. Yeah, there's a lot of storms hitting New Zealand right now. We've had flood warnings. I expect us to have significant problems for forever now. I think this is a standard. The rest of the world's been experiencing it. New Zealand has had some of that, but it's definitely showing its heckles a lot more now than any other time I've ever seen it. So it's going to be quite a common occurrence. So this is a different one, which I'll brush off again. This is lighter again, and there. So I just need to very carefully, not too much, just where it needs it. And I don't think I'm going to do too much of it here. So I've done this a few times now, and we're kind of getting the highlights in. Leave it off there, and I just run my brush along the tips where I really want it the most. Okay, yeah, I think that's got it. All right, so this one, that's the dry brushing done for the flames. And I will move on. We'll do a different color this time. We'll do, I'm really worried about doing red. Red's a bad color. Green might be a better idea. Although if I do the red now, I give it time to actually dry off. That might be even smarter. Also, when we were talking about pickpocketing, and so I will do the red. I'll do that next. This is a very dark little brownish looking red too, by the way. So I think what I wanted to do is pickpocketing for a rogue is one thing, but I want there to be another aspect. I want there some skills around cat burglary. So I thought that was a couple of things that I need to consider. I don't know how to do that yet, but I think cat burglary is definitely something we need to consider building out a bit more. And I guess the other, because I don't want it just to be sleight of hand check. I don't, for 5e it's like, oh, it's a sleight of hand check, or it's a stealth check if you're sneaking around. I mean, of course, rogues being sneaky, but I think it needs to go a bit further than that. I haven't figured out how to make that work, but I will eventually. The next one is Thieves' Cant. Has anybody ever noticed that Thieves' Cant is almost... Most dungeon masters don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do with it. There's really not enough guidance around it in the first place to do anything with it. Which is a problem, because it should be... It's been around from the very get-go. I mean, Thieves' Cant's been there forever. And yet, there's never really been a satisfactory way of dealing with it. I think in its current form, it's not enough. This is Cambion Crimson. So I'm thinking this needs to be broadened out and expanded. And I'm not entirely sure how to do that yet, but I will figure it out. Well, I'm hoping I will. So I'm hoping this brush is dry enough. This is one of the things that I was worried about, is if the brush isn't dry enough, when I try to dry brush, it won't dry brush at all. It'll just go on wet, and it'll just get all muddy. Okay, I've been brushing off my brush. Hopefully it is dry enough. So this is Cambion Red. We'll do that first. I'm thinking that Thieves' Cant might have something to do with decoding, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on. I don't know what other people are thinking in terms of the rogue. It's hard to work with a rogue and say where's the holes, because I feel like the rogue is generally not too bad. I would say at higher levels it's still lost, like most of the classes for 5e. They still don't really know what to do with it at high level, like, you know. Okay, this might work, or it might not. This is going to not work so well, I can see now. I can just see it now. It's going to be really hard to pick it out. Okay. All right, let's just keep going. Keep going. Brush, 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 brush. Brushity brush, brush, brush. Yeah, the transition is so mild because the red is so dark. The first one I used was just so dark. Okay, all right. We'll try that again. Get some more on there. Obviously that wasn't enough. I guess the other thing, standard skills. Like, what are the standard skills for a rogue? And I think the standard skills for a rogue that aren't really standard, and they should be stealth. It's something you don't pick, you just have it. So not so much, you have a choice of taking stealth. No, you get stealth as a standard. Like, it's built into the class. That's it. You're not going to get to choose that one. That doesn't make any sense. And also climbing, because I think climbing and stealth, climbing I kind of feel like goes into the cat burglar concept. So you should be better at climbing, I think, if you are a rogue. I'm sure you can have different types of rogues and all that sort of thing, but I think at its core, the concept is you should be better at climbing and moving around stealthily. I asked yesterday, I'll ask again, where are these minis from? Oh, sorry. Dungeons and Chronics. In the description, you'll find a link to Castle Ravenloft, the D&D board game. It's a very old board game. I'm really sorry that I didn't answer the question yesterday. I probably just missed it. So I've answered it. I knew people would want to know, so I did make sure to put it into the description, or maybe I just didn't make it clear that that's what it was going on. Okay, that's working a little bit better. And yeah, so if you're really interested in it, and you can get them, but you buy the whole box. There's 40 miniatures in there, so you need to make sure that all the stuff that they've got in the box is stuff you want. Okay, it's probably a cheaper way of buying miniatures in bulk, but it depends on where you are in the world. I've found that if you're in North America, it works out pretty well for you. If you're in another part of the world, it's more expensive. Like, it's actually not actually very good for you at all. It actually will hurt quite. If you're in Europe or some of the what do you call it, South America, or like Africa, or like it would be horrific. I was late yesterday. Oh, okay, all right. So this is, I think that has got the red that I wanted. That was a Cambion red. So let's move on to. Now, I'm not washing that brush out yet. We're going to go with Rust Monster, which is basically an orange color. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, I'm thinking the heat is so hot that you wind up with the tips being white, and fire can burn like that. So I'm thinking that's probably the best way. Hopefully the orange stands out a lot more against the heavy red that I've got, because right now it's heavily red. And then I also want the backstab. The backstab feature that the rogue gets, or the sneak attack. I want it to include a few more situations where it can be utilized, because it's really its main tool, and it needs to also follow on and make sense that it work in a certain circumstance, and it's just a little too narrow, I think, right now in 5e. So if you are flanking, I think you should have it. Whether you're using advantage with it or not, I mean, obviously if you have advantage, you can sneak attack, but sometimes the problem is you've also got to have a couple other things going on. So advantage, yes, as long as you don't have disadvantage, I'm fine with that. The fact that you might have an ally within 5 feet is fine, but just having somebody within 5 feet, they need to be doing something. If they're not helping you, they're not distracting, they're really not that useful to you to distract somebody. So they really need to be doing something, as far as I'm concerned. So an ally within 5 feet solely is probably not good enough to actually get the job done, if you ask me. And then I think the other aspect of the rogue is if they're unaware of you. So if you surprise them, or they're unaware of you, those should also be conditions where you can use your sneak attack. And I think the one thing that needs to happen with sneak attack is, instead of it stating that you can use it once per turn, it needs to state you can use it once per round, so that you can't use it later on, and that you can't use it multiple times. You can only use it once per round. I think that is wording that needs to exist there. It would be too easy to exploit it if you figure out how to get your attack bonus up nice and high. So, and I believe that, 1 D&D or D&D Revised, or whatever the heck Wizards of the Coast is up to, I think they are going in that direction already, aren't they? So I'm sure that'll happen. Okay, so that worked out reasonably well. I'm kind of tempted to hit it again, so I will, with the orange. And at this rate, I believe we will probably get on to painting skeletons today in about 10 minutes. I would imagine it won't take too much longer at the rate that I'm going. This is good. So yes, I don't know how people feel about sneak attack or backstabbing, but I think it needs to be tied into, you can only do it once per round rather than once per turn, because otherwise you wind up with the people using it on the reaction, right? Can you force an attack and then you can get another sneak attack damage? This goes back to one of the aspects of the rogue being I guess being able to maneuver around, but I'll get back to that. I think also rogues should get additional languages. At higher levels, I think additional languages for a rogue is actually desirable. I want them to have more access to that, because it kind of makes sense that they are the ones who sort of learn stuff. And I mean, I guess we've always sort of assumed that the wizard will wind up doing all of that. Do you know what I mean? That the spellcasters will be the language people, but I actually think the rogues probably should as well. And I would like to have that built in. So that's what my group wants, is to have that aspect in there. Okay, so this actually didn't work out too badly. That's not too bad. I'm not going to go deep in there because I can probably mess it up if I'm not careful. Okay, cool. All right, next colour. I don't know how well this is going to work. I'm going to go to a yellow. This is Fire Newt Yellow. I find yellow to be the worst colour under the sun to use when painting miniatures. And it can often just make a terrible mess of everything. So hold on to your panties, baby, because this could be a bad decision on my part. So I'll put out some yellow. I will dry off the orange as much as I can before I have to clean this brush. Okay, and then we'll try the yellow. Here we go. Yellow is such a stink colour. It just never covers well. So everybody's very quiet today. I've got a quiet group. You're all painting, that's why it is. Don't worry about it. If you're painting, don't need to say anything. I get it. Keep doing your thing. I'll do the talking. Now, decoding. I've said this a few times, and I've had a few other people mention it. I think rogues should be able to decode. Like, that just seems like a no-brainer. Oh, that's not too bad, actually. Oh, okay. Sweet. That was more like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Ha 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 ha. Okay. I like it. That'll work for me. We'll go on the back. And along here. And then along here. And that's kind of caught the tops of the flames. Okay. Interesting. Cool. Right. Well, that worked better than I thought it would. All right. Let's put that aside. I'm going to wash this brush out. We're going to be doing green the next. Green is going to be interesting. So yes, decoding. I was thinking puzzle solving, but then I realized that the problem with having the rogue be able to figure out puzzles is puzzles are really designed in a game to test and trial something like the skill and knowledge of a player, not a character. And this is not a bad thing in the game, but to actually put in something that allowed them to solve puzzles easier would be bad. But decoding in some way may be able to be built into the game. I just don't know how to do it without disrupting those people who build puzzles to be figured out by their players rather than from by the character itself. So there's an aspect to this that I'm not too sure. I think it needs to have a risk of failure. I think there needs to be a failure possibility. Make it easier, but not give them the solution. I think that maybe that's the way I need to approach it. I will figure out how to design it. I'm sure I'll get something figured out in some way. Big Cat, hello, Big Cat. Big Cat is a patron and supports me on Patreon, and he is doing a giant dragon turtle castle, a dragon turtle castle. Yep, airbrushing. You're airbrushing? Look, you keep doing your airbrushing. You can't be distracted while you're airbrushing. It's not something you can start and then stop again. Otherwise, the paint dries in the thing. So you keep doing your stuff. Airbrush away. So the next colour, I did a really dark colour. I started off with troll skin, and now I'm going to go into the next colour, which was it troll skin? No, actually I used this one, didn't I? I used the deep green, the Vallejo green, didn't I? So that means that I don't want to go too dark. So I take away the troll one. Don't want that. I'm actually already past that, so I need to go to the next one, which is going to be Feywild Emerald. We'll do Feywild Emerald. Let's turn this around. I'm going to run out of spots, but that's right. I kind of figured that might happen. And it's not coming out, so it's blocked, or I need to clear it, so I will clear it. Give me a second. And where's a little toothpick? Jam that little toothpick in there. The other thing is reading magic scrolls with a chance of error. The error, there isn't really much of an error chance when reading scrolls right now in 5e, and I think that was there in the game originally, and I think that needs to come back. I still want them to be able to read magic scrolls, but I want them to be, there's definitely a chance of fluffing it up. We want that there. That's a fun concept. And my group, who have a bunch of people who like playing rogues, they're all like, yeah, we want to be able to balls it up. And I'm like, okay, sweet, we'll do that, not a problem. We also had a discussion around, should a rogue get something like a stronghold, and in the end we decided that no, this is one thing that they should not get castles. Don't give the rogue a castle. You need to give them something else. And so we did come up with a solution for that. But we also thought that they needed to be able to set up a thieves guild, like being able to have a thieves guild and followers. A spy network or a rogue network would be quite fun as well. And I'm like, yep, that sounds exactly where my head was at. Let's go down and double down on that one. But then they came up with something that I thought was really interesting, and I don't know why they decided, but I think it went right back to the older versions of the game. And they said, yeah, but you can't. We need to have a chance to be able to set up our own thieves guild. But the only way to do that is to eliminate all the thieves guilds in that region. Because if you don't, they will go after you. And I'm like, okay, seriously, you want that? And they said, yes. Yes, we want that. We want to be... And what I've started to realize is what they're wanting is from level 10 onward, they want the character's progression to determine the story for their characters. That's the kind of story they're looking for now. And it actually makes rather a lot of sense, I have to say, is that, okay, so now character progression is, it's got tied into it what it is that you want to be able to do during the adventure. Because if you've ever run high-level games, you'll know that high-level games are very dependent on your players. There are certain people who can play high-level games because it's so player-driven. It's very much dependent on what the players are going to do and decide to do. And the character sheet and advancement doesn't really help with that. But if you build it into the game at the character level stage, then you do make it easier for it to be possible to make it happen. So yes, I will do something like that. Followers, definitely give them followers, and they're going to be a spy network of some kind, and building your own thieves guild, but having to eliminate existing thieves guilds just sounds like a neat way to be able to do that. I didn't realize they would come up with something like that. That was cool. All right, so the green is not working out that well. I'm going to try again. We'll see if this comes off better the second time round. Additional tool proficiencies or tool training. Not just thieves tools, but I think it needs to be something else. I think we need to give the rogue options that they can pick up in terms of learning new skills. So that's another one that I'm going to work on. I'm not going to brush off too much because this didn't work so well last time, did it? So I need some of the paint to actually come off the brush onto the miniature. And dry brush, dry brush, dry brush. Okay, it's working a little bit better this time. And not too bad, not too bad. Flamey, flamey flames. Light, 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 light. Let's do this again. I don't know if I'm going to get much more paint off here, but we'll see. That's there. Yeah. Yeah, the green isn't working quite as well as the other two colours, I think. Green as a flaming skeleton, not brilliant with what I'm doing here right now, I'd say. I'm hoping maybe the lighter colour will help. It has done something. It's picked out some of the detail, but it's just not the same. Not working quite as well. Okay, so then I was thinking Batman. And I thought, well, what about Batman? And it would be nice, I don't know about you, but how do you feel about having a rogue that at some point at higher levels gets a utility belt? Like, not just thieves' tools, but a utility belt that can do other things. And I thought that was a cool idea to build into character progression. I don't know how it would look. I don't know what necessarily they would get, but I like the idea of the utility belt. I think there's definitely something to be said for trying something out like that. So yeah, I will definitely consider including that as well in the future. Okay, this is much lighter. This here is Gungan green. So this Gungan green might actually solve my problems, or it might not. We'll see. All right. So if you were showing up here thinking that I knew all the answers in terms of painting, nah, not really. I'm just painting because I can. And I've been wanting to paint these little suckers for a long time, so this is the time. All right, let's see. Let's brush off. Okay. Okay, let's see if this works. Let's go back. Oh yeah, okay. Well, that's definitely coming off a lot better. That's helping. That's picking out the details a bit more too. I can actually see the flames now. I'm probably on the screen. You can probably see it a lot better too. So we'll go front, where I was kind of a little bit worried I might mess it up, but that's actually working quite nicely. A lot better than I had thought it would. The problem with some of the lighter colours is they just don't seem to come off very well sometimes. But I guess it's the other layers of paint have probably made the big difference, right? That's what's going on here. Don't need to worry too much about underneath his crotches. His crotches is not our biggest issue. It's really down here. Really down here. Okay. Alright. That's not too bad. I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe I'll do just a quick run. Let's grab a bit more paint off this. Dungeons and Crocs Flaming Skull before it loses its limbs. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The Flaming Skull before it loses its limbs, absolutely. Or it loses something else, who knows. What else can Flaming Skulls lose? Okay. How's it going, Shiner81? How are you? Okay, so I don't have any lighter greens to put over this, so I'm not going to deal with any more lightening up of the flamey stuff. I think that's the dry brushing aspect done. And now we're on to actually painting the miniature itself. And I suspect for this to work, I'm going to have to use a wash, a dark shadow wash for a lot of this. So I'm going to grab right now white. I'm going to do a lot of white, and then I'm going to transition into a couple of different colors for each of the skeletons. I don't know how well that's going to work, but I'm hoping it will. Going back to the rogue, what do people think? Do you think the rogue needs extra attack? I've heard people say, why can't the rogue get some sort of extra attack? Obviously not as many extra attacks as the fighter. But this is one of the things that people wind up doing is they multi-class from rogue into fighter so they can get one more attack later on. Do you know what I mean? So you wind up with these multi-builds to do that. And I actually, maybe the solution to stop people from trying to multi-class is to give the rogue extra attack. Maybe it will be extra attack at a higher level than the fighter. They won't get it straight away. They can still do two-weapon fighting, of course, but maybe that's a solution. I hadn't thought about that much, but maybe you'll let me know, those of you who can. How do you feel about the fighter, the rogue, getting some sort of extra attack at a certain point? Okay, so this here is the blue one. I'm going to use white first on the skeleton bones, and then I'm going to transition in from that to a zombie flesh. The white is just a picker, actually. Is the white going first? No, I think it is. I'll go into that, and then I'm going to go into skeleton bone. I think that's the way to go about this. White, flesh, and then the skeleton bone. I could probably skip the white completely and just go from zombie flesh into the skeleton bone, but I've added another step. I don't know how well it's going to work. We'll see. Actually, maybe that's a mistake. I'll go the other way around. I'll go zombie flesh, skeleton bone, and the white will be the highlight for just a little bit in certain places. Yeah, okay, that's a plan. I've got a plan now. My plan is established. And I just need some space to actually put this paint out. I also need a reasonably decent brush, but not the best brush under the sun, so I've got one. So, where's a spot that's mostly dry? That's mostly dry. Oops, there's a lot of cark on the tip of that one. We'll just get rid of it. And hopefully that's good. Cool, let's do this. So yeah, extra attack. It is something that I am considering including into the rogue, but just at higher levels than the fighter. The other thing is battle mobility. Like, the rogue should be able to jump in and out of combat without having to take a feat. I want the classes to play well and the way they need to play without having to go and know the game system. And I think the simplest way is to allow them to have access. Well, actually, it's not so much that, because they've got cunning action. But I think the mobility thing is, I want to build on the idea that they can get an aim as part of maybe the cunning action, or dodge. Not just disengage, dash, and what is the other one? Does anybody remember? I can't remember. It's on top of my mind. I'm here to top. Yeah, I've forgotten what it is. So I'm going to just paint these skeleton bits. Probably not going to be that great in terms of how it's painted, because it is just the first layer. But I'm sure we'll get there eventually. So if you're hoping you're going to see lots of little fiddly painting, I think we're in the fiddly painting stage now. Probably be able to fix most of my problems with with a wash again. So yeah, that was something I was thinking. Now, another aspect that I was wanting to look at, and that is the ability to access vehicles for the rogue, because they had stolen them. I wanted them to have like a chop shop option, where they don't get access to vehicles because they have enough money. It's because they flogged it. It's very grand. It's very Grand Theft Auto, isn't it? But I like the idea of doing something like that. So yes, I want them to have access to vehicles because they'll be able to steal them. And then there would be various things you could steal at certain levels. You might be saying, well, that's a story aspect, Fred. That's not a character. But again, I think the character itself can drive the story. And right now, the character sheet doesn't help the dungeon master or game master drive the story. It just makes it harder for them to run combat. And getting access to a different type of style of vehicle just helps you maneuver around the world rather than making you better at fighting. So I think that's, I suppose it could if you got yourself a chariot and you go into battle with a chariot all the time, with horses and a chariot. I flogged this chariot, I put spinners on it, neon lights. Now look at me. I don't have to, I don't think it's going to be like that at all myself. I don't think that's how my group will play anyway. So yes, I thought that would be a fun way to include that into the game, and that's what I will probably wind up doing. So there's the legs are starting to come out. You can see them. Let's do the rib cage. Another thing that I thought would be fun to do is I want them to have access to a magic item at level 17. I kind of want to do that with all the classes, but for different reasons. I still haven't figured out why it is that and what sort of magic items that and it would be a legendary one. I don't know what sort of magic item or legendary magic item would be suitable for a rogue at 17. I mean, obviously a magic weapon is always going to be, people are going to be grateful for, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be that. Well, the one legendary magic item that I don't think they should have at 17th level is armor, but I think that applies to any class, because any class with that sort of thing is just too strong. Do you know what I mean? Bound accuracy just falls apart when you start messing with that. It's going to fall apart at some point anyway, with the attack bonus being so high. But I think armor just makes it harder for the enemy to hit you, and it's bad enough as it is, frankly. So just an idea. I think the rogue has enough bonus actions that it doesn't need an extra attack. It is a build meant to not being hit in combat, and for and for first round damage. Yeah, so we'll see how it is. So thank you for sharing that. But we'll see how my group feels about the whole thing, because as I've said before, although I'll be showing people what I'm doing, ultimately in the end it'll be what my group wants to play, and so I'll go off that. But curious, I would imagine, and most of the talk I think that my group had was not around. I mean, none of them even mentioned, we should be able to have extra attack at higher levels. No, nobody mentioned that at all. And I'm like, oh, okay. But they did mention other things. So interesting. Okay, so we're getting there with our skeleton. It's going to take me a little while to get all the bones done, but only a matter of time before it's covered and ready for the next coat of paint, which is good. I don't think I need to be too fancy with my paint here, because I'm going to be shading the deeper areas anyway, so yes, I'm not using a particularly good brush, if you were wondering. I'm just using a standard size brush, and it's a little bit old, so it's a bit frayed and so forth. So there we go. At least once this is painted out, I'll be able to see roughly where everything is, and that'll help. That'll help a little bit. So those were all my ideas in terms of the rogue. Did anybody feel like there was anything else that the rogue is missing? I don't think there is, myself. But I'm curious if anybody thinks that there's something that the rogue doesn't currently do that they probably should be able to do. I've got the lurgy, if you're wondering. All this weather is just making it harder and harder to actually get rid of it. Not the best way to be when you're on holiday. I suppose I should just get used to the fact that this is what's going to be like for the rest of the year for me. This tends to happen. Once I get sick, I stay sick until we get to summer. And it's been bad enough with the hay fever. I don't know what class I'll talk about tomorrow, but I'm kind of open to the possibility of talking about a couple of different other things. I think possibly it'll wind up being the cleric. We've got a cleric in our group. We've actually got a wizard in our group, but again, I don't want to talk about the wizard straight away. It's probably the last class I want to tackle out of all of them. I think it's the one that I have the least interest in doing a lot on. So I think what I'm going to do once I've got this on here is I'm going to shift to a different brush when I do the next lot of colours over the top of this, just so I have a bit more control of where the paint is going, because right now it's just kind of, it's a little rough. It's a little rough. Okay, so that's the front picked out. I've got to do the back because there's a spine in the back of this thing. Which is going to be a little interesting. There's your little button. I can see you. There we go. I'm going to have to clean this brush off. It's starting to get a bit caked in paint. And yep. Yep. This is going to be an interesting process. Oh, come on. Just go in there. Okay. All right. So I think I've pretty much got that sorted. Yeah, let's move that across. I'll grab the next one. I'll clean out my brush, and we'll do the red one next. Do skeletons regenerate? Not unless you want them. In 5e, they don't regenerate. Skeletons don't regenerate. But you could certainly build that into a homebrew one if you wanted to have, skeletons regenerate. I think the idea is the skeleton is sort of your lowest form of undead. If you think in terms of undead, that's probably the lowest form of it. Okay, so the red one next. And let's get paint into the spaces I want fairly quickly. There we go. And the paint's starting to dry a little bit, so it's going to get a bit blotchy. I probably should thin it down. Okay, let's see if I can do that without making a mess, because every time I thin down the paint with this stuff, it just makes a horrible mess. So let's see if that worked. Okay, not too bad. Better than it was. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's coming along nicely. We'll get the underneath of that foot. The other side. So how for flaming skeletons, is it a magical flame, or does the flame eventually burn out the skeleton? No, it's a magical flame. So imagine you have the flaming skeleton. So let's talk about the flaming skeleton. Since I'm painting it, we might as well. The flaming skeleton is a creation of Dungeons and Dragons 4E. And essentially it's magical fire. It's a much stronger skeleton than your standard skeleton. And they used to hurl fireballs at you. Like, imagine that you are getting inundated by fireballs from a skeleton. They're not casting a spell. It's not spell casting. It's literally hurling fire that is surrounding its body at you, which is terrifying in its concept. Although I believe the fireballs that they hurl are usually not as powerful as fireball in Dungeons and Dragons that you are familiar with. So the 4E version of throwing this sort of stuff around, they were kind of used like artillery. They weren't really used as frontliners. They were, because there were different roles in 4E, and so the artillery was what you used them for. Anyway, let me just wash out this brush and try again. Where is this zombie? We're going the zombie way. I'm going to use the zombie colour. Right, just a little bit so it doesn't dry. And here we go again. So yes, that's what the deal with it is. It's magical fire. And they're a really fun monster to include. It's kind of a shame that we didn't see them kind of return in 5e, but they could easily mess you up. Like, it wasn't fun to be attacked by them. It should be obvious, right? Getting inundated by fireballs from a flaming skeleton, not a fun time for the players. A great time for a dungeon master, though. Game masters, dungeon masters would have a ball hurling these things at you. So yes, if you saw flaming skeletons, you usually targeted them first. And if you didn't, you die. Although dying in 4E was pretty hard, you know. An awful lot of different things had to go wrong for you to die. They had a lot of things in place to ensure that didn't happen too often. And then, of course, as soon as you got to higher level, it almost never die. Even reincarnating or resurrecting characters was probably not that necessary in 4E. Now, for those of you who think I'm going to continue talking about 4E indefinitely, that's not true. But yes, that's where the flaming skeleton comes from. Unless, of course, somebody remembers it being available and usable in an older version of D&D, you let me know. I might be wrong, but that's where I remember using them. And fighting them, because I used to play and Dungeon Master that game. So it makes me laugh when I hear advice on, well, what was wrong with the game? And I'm like, well, I've done both, and I'm pretty sure I've got a good idea of where the problems lie. I'm actually going to, at some point, demonstrate how to play Dungeons & Dragons 4E, people. I'm going to demonstrate how to play Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 as well. I thought that would be fun to actually sort of do a class. I've done it with 5e. I've done it with Hero Quest. I'm going to be doing it with Star Wars Saga. We'll get back to that once I'm off holiday. We'll continue down that road because it's quite a complicated system. And then I will learn and figure out how to do Pathfinder. Pathfinder, can I just say that trying to explain to people how Pathfinder works and demonstrate it is going to be so awful. It is such a crunchy, heavy rules game. But I will still do it. And at some time when I find the time, I don't know when that's supposed to happen, but I'm hoping that I will be able to do it, is I will do shorts videos. Now, whether they are vertical, less than 60 seconds to explain stuff, or whether they are horizontal and just very short, I don't know. This is kind of how I built my channel, but it was a bit different when I was dealing with 5e because I knew people would be looking for 5e. I know people are looking for Pathfinder, but I get the impression that people are playing Pathfinder usually used to a lot of complexity anyway. So I don't think that those sorts of shorts explanations on how to play Pathfinder are going to be terribly useful to that particular community because they are so familiar with complexity already and they gravitate towards it, so it's not a big issue for them. They don't really need the likes of me explaining stuff, but we'll see. Now, here we go. We're getting there. Let's get this hand done. And the hand, I don't need to be too fancy with it because I'm going to go over it again. So we will just put the paint on, get that tip going again, and twist. Twist the paint on, twist, twist, twist. There we go. Twist, twist, twist. Okay, that's not too bad. I think the top of that arm probably needs a bit more paint on it. Does the underneath? No, it's all right. The top of it does. Okay. Oh, is anybody into Fighting Fantasy? I loved the old Fighting Fantasy books, the Pick a Path, or the White Dwarf, or was it Lone Dwarf? It was called Lone Dwarf. So yeah, those things really appealed to me, and somebody made a video, and it's like a history of Fighting Fantasy, and he's made it like a plot twist or a Pick a Path adventure. And it kept me occupied yesterday for so many hours as I tried to go through every single video that he had put together. I was trying to find the key, because I got the impression from what he was saying there was a door and a key, and I could not find the door or the key. But there was a lot of videos. Some of them got shorter and shorter and shorter, which was a little bit frustrating. But yeah, I got suckered. How's it going, Michael? How are you? To me, Pathfinder 2e isn't bad to learn. It makes sense more than D&D in a lot of ways. Well, I think a lot of the things that they're trying to do with Pathfinder 2nd Edition do make sense. It's just, if I have to teach somebody else how to play it and explain how it works, it's going to be difficult. Much more difficult than the likes of some of the games I've played in the past. I had assumed that the likes of 3.5 was probably going to be one of the hardest games to explain. But then I had forgotten I'd played Pathfinder 1st Edition, and that was like playing Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. But in many respects, it was even harder, unless of course you were dealing with grappling. Grappling was another animal. I see you painting them in different. Does the different colours represent different flame effects? Yeah, it could. It could well be. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to do that, but I just didn't want them to all look exactly the same. I would like to have them look kind of slightly different. A bit of variety. You can only paint so much red before it kind of gets boring. I've seen people paint these different colours, and I kind of like that idea, so I was like, yeah, let's do that. So that's why I'm doing it, if you were wondering. Let me just clean off my brush. But yes, different magical effects, different types of fireballs, maybe even different ways that the fire affects you might be fun. It's very 4E, because that's how 4E was kind of built. Is everything had a special power. Powers were a big thing for that game. So I kind of, yeah. Okay, let's have a look. That looks all right on that side. That's not too bad there. That's all right there. Pretty happy with that. Flip it over. I need a bit more paint. I'll wash off the brush again. So we're at top of the hour, which is usually where I would take a break. And I might just go take a break, use the toilet and come back and continue. But I'll put this paint on this back of this miniature and then, yeah, so we might go a little bit longer. My voice is kind of cracking a little bit, but I'm not too bad. But definitely I will need to go use the can. The can is calling me. I need to empty the lizard. A few of you are probably wondering what the heck I'm talking about. It's a Kiwi thing, okay? It's a Kiwi thing. Yes. There we go. Tomorrow is Friday, so for me tomorrow is Star Wars Day, which means I get to go and watch more of The Mandalorian and hang out with my brother and my mum, and we'll watch a bit of The Bad Batch because we usually do, and I will probably, hopefully that's the day I go and get a haircut. If the weather holds and there's no storm warnings or flooding. Been way too much of that going on recently. So, yeah. Let's do this. Geez. Dom. Get that head in there. Hello, Jack. How are you? Dang, Fred. Maybe I'll just, I'll have to finally paint my flaming skeletons. Have you ever looked into the Dungeon Crawl Classics or Dungeon World? These systems have a lot of interesting mechanics. I have looked into them, but as I've said, I've got more than enough books for the next 4 months to contend with. And so I'm not going to buy any products when I have stuff already on my shelf. That doesn't mean I won't do them in the future, but that could be a year from now, that could be 2 years from now. Right now, somebody is sending me Morkbork. I don't know, I don't think it's pronounced Morkbork, but it's kind of like death metal role-playing. For those of you who are wondering what the heck that all is, that's what it's supposedly supposed to sort of represent. I'm not really painting this colour on in a fancy way, people, if you're wondering. It's just the first layer, and the rest of it, I'm assuming that the wash will hide. Okay, so move that one out of the way. I'm going to do the green one next. But before I do that, I'm definitely going to take a quick break. Go empty the lizard, go to the can, and then I'll come back. So don't think that I'm gone. Where's Arnold? There you are, Arnold. Come here. All right. Back in 5 or less. All right, coming back into it. Here we go. more water. Keep myself hydrated. Okay. Right, let's do the next colour. The next skeleton, shall I say. Not the next colour. We're not doing the next colour. We're still on the same colour. Okay, cool. So yeah, when it comes to covering new systems, I feel like Jordan, the PH is Silent, is doing a great job with Dungeon Crawl Classics. So I don't really need to do that anytime soon. And since I don't have the books, it doesn't make sense. But what I know a lot of people are not covering is they're not covering Star Wars Saga. They're not covering... a lot of people aren't covering Dark Heresy. And I like Dark Heresy. I don't really know how to play it because I never really played it that really. I mean, I tried, but I really need a bit of help around that. I'm going to be playing D&D Basic with Wally DM very shortly and AJ Pickett more than likely. We've decided we wanted to give that a whirl because AJ's never played Basic D&D, so we might do that. You're going to see a little bit more of Shadow Dark from me. You'll probably see my own game system being demonstrated as well for people who are unsure how it works. So I thought that actually doing some demonstrations of mazes and monstrosities was a good idea. Although that's not really the official name, so I'm holding off on doing that. What's the other thing? I've got plenty of books on 4E, so covering 4E certainly seems like it's something I would do since I know that system already. I mean, it's been a few years, but I can at least explain it. I've got 3.5, so I remember playing 3.5. I've got the books for Pathfinder, so I can explain Pathfinder. I've played Bulldogs, which is Fate, so I know how to kind of explain that one as well. I know almost nobody will be interested in that, but it's a shame because it's still a fun game, just a different way of playing. So I've got so many different books to review already that covering new systems outside of what I've got. It might change, Jack, in the future. I mean, what it essentially means is I'll cover those things first, and then when I run out of stuff to do, then I move on to something else. But like I said, I've got somebody already sending me Mork book. I haven't gone over the AD&D second edition Dungeon Master Guide yet, which I need to do at some point because there's a reason why I asked for it, and Dan was kind enough to send it to me, and it was a bit of an effort on his part and quite expensive, so I do want to actually do that. When somebody sends something to me and it's a physical book, it's a big deal as far as I'm concerned, because I know it's such a hassle and it's so expensive. So yes. Oh, and yesterday I paid a great huge chunk off my mortgage, so I don't have to work until I'm 70, which is going to be nice. I don't even think I'd last that long, considering the kind of health problems I wind up with. Are very, very unlikely that I'd last that long. So that's really good news. Unfortunately, it's not the channel that's helping me get there. It's kind of the other way around. It's the standard job that I've got that's making that possible. I'm just able to save. It's been a lot harder. Man, everything's so expensive right now. But yes, I'm reading my way through Esper's Emporium of Esoterica. I've been going through the Pathfinder Second Edition Game Mastery Guide, which I have to say is very poor. I do not think very much of this book so far. There are some things in it that are good, but it's really set up for a beginner, and it's really not much good as a tool. It's really just advice, and sometimes it's just way too waffly. Like you get lost in the text and like, what the heck were they saying? Sometimes there's a reason that the bullet point exists. People use the bullet point. Sometimes rather than just a paragraph after paragraph and scattering in a few pictures, putting in pictures doesn't break up the text. Use a bullet point. Narrow down the points you're trying to make into bullet points. rather than turn it into just written text. It's like, so it's been a slow, arduous process going through that book, I'll tell you now. I'm going through the Tome of Beasts 2 as well, and that's number 2 and the number 3 one. So I'm kind of working my way through 4 books, ultimately, that I will probably review over the next 4 months. But I'm going to probably expose people to a lot of homebrew stuff that people have put together. There's a huge amount of homebrew IP stuff floating around, and I thought it would be fun to go over them. I've kind of mentioned them before, but I won't do it again. Not till I'm actually ready to actually go over the actual documentation. But yeah, I think that'll be what the next 4 months holds. And then of course we'll be rebuilding and remastering the different 5e classes. Probably going to take a year to do so, because I think I can only do one a month. I think that'll be how it works out with everything else that's going on. And I'll just make them available on Patreon if people are interested. Or they can just take the ideas that I've put together and use them themselves, like whatever works for you. Because I'm really not interested in what Wizards of the Coast is doing, and frankly, every dog, animal, and cat is making a RPG right now, so there's a lot to pick from, and nothing it really kind of suits. So yeah, or suits me anyway. In my group, we've been playing too long. We should have done this years ago. We should have just made it the game we wanted and be done with it. But we've stuck it out, probably because we just didn't have the time. That's always the factor, right? Is to sit down and actually figure out what you're going to do with it. That's the time-consuming part, right? Which is why, unless you have somebody who's really invested, it doesn't get done. So I guess I count as the invested person in the group, and I will get it done. Okay, let's just plonk a bit of paint in there. It's coming along, picking it out. So what have people been doing? Anybody watched any good movies recently? I really want to go and see Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm not so interested in Fast and Furious 10. But Guardians of the Galaxy, yeah. I would definitely like to see that before my holiday ends. I don't expect there to be very much else for quite some time. Oh, the Flash movie coming, it might be quite good too, eh? The Oppenheimer movie too, actually, was it Nolan's movie about the atomic bomb, or the development of the atomic bomb. Might wind up being quite good. Pretty heavy stuff though. Probably, I would say, definitely one of the most catastrophic developments in human history is the atomic bomb. Catastrophic. Can you imagine what would happen if somebody decided to use one of those things again? It's been used on the Japanese. Oh my gosh, can you imagine what it would be like? You're dealing with a nation who would... How do you get past the fact that you've been hit by one of these things? And it's not like you're hitting a military target, because you would just hit so many civilians would be wiped out in the process. Sorry. You're building a castle front. Oh, cool. Well, hopefully it's going well. I am kind of getting there with this. I'm looking forward to going to the next colour, because Getting this first layer on is just a bad matter of just picking out the skeleton, really. It's not very interesting. But I think I'm almost done with this one. And then we can move back to a new colour and start with the next skeleton. I've glued 700 bricks together. Oh my gosh. Is that Lego bricks or some other type of brick? I can't believe that. That's a lot of bricks. Are you building it from Lego, or have you've got some sort of special craft bricks that you're using? Because I'm sure there are special craft bricks that you can buy. I would imagine they are hugely expensive. Lego bricks are pretty expensive too here in New Zealand. So if you were using Lego bricks, that would be... Ah, really? Maybe you can get a knockoff brick that's very similar. Okay. Let me see. Is that mostly covered where I need it? Oh, there's a little bit of paint that needs to go there. Okay. Alright, so that's the basic structure on the front. Let me just wash off my brush and I'll do the back. Oh, she rolled away. Here we go. Let's do the back. We'll do the buttocks. Starting with the buttocks. Working up the spine from the buttocks. Yep. There we go. So I'm not putting the paint on really light. If you were wondering what's going on, it's not happening that way. XP foam. Oh, you've made it out of foam. Oh. You've actually had to cut all the bricks yourself. Yee. Well, that's cheaper. You can't really get XP foam here in New Zealand. It's not an easy access item. I consider doing a dark wash for the skeleton before highlights on the flames. It would make those skeletons really pop, but they take so long to dry brush. Wash at the end. Yes, I will wash at the end. I am aware that if I use a wash, it will make the flames sort of die down. I'm probably not going to wash the flames. I will wash just the skeletons. Because I think if I wash the flames, it will drop the colour. I could go over with just one colour as a dry highlight, but there's so little control over the paint at that point that it may not be such a great idea. I mean, I could use white, I suppose. Stop rolling away. Okay. Yeah, so a wash near the end is definitely probably what's going to be installed, but I will paint the wash on the skeleton rather than the flames. And then have a look at it and reassess and see what I want to do from there. So I think at this point, this brush is no longer any good to me. I'm going to have to go to a different brush. It'll have to be a finer, smaller brush to get the rest of the paint on. And we'll drop that over there. We'll move this colour. Where is it going to go? It's going to go... Where's the other colours? Oh, don't lose it. Okay, there we go. That's my order. Okay, cool. Next one is skeleton bone. So skeleton bone. And we need a finer tipped brush. But not the best brush that I've got. Finer tipped. I think it's this one here. It's the good one. What do you got here, Michael? Seems like it doesn't take that long for the skeletons to be painted. That's cool. While I need to get going. No problems. Your break's over. I'll see you later. Thank you for showing up, Michael. Yeah, the skeletons themselves don't take that long. I think the skeletons have taken me roughly about half an hour to do all of them, which I suppose is still a bit of time. But then I'm talking. I'm not really focusing as much as somebody else would. Was doing it by hand, by heart, until my son got me a... Oh, okay. A proxon? What's a proxon for your birthday? Explain to me what a proxon is, because I don't know. I'm completely unfamiliar with what a proxon is. Okay, so this is the next colour. This colour is going to be going on, as I said, skeleton bone is going to be going on, not necessarily to cover the entire skeleton itself, but in the general location. And so I'm not trying to paint the whole thing. I'm just going to paint the higher areas with it. Since I can control the paint a bit more with a smaller brush, that's what I thought I would do. So you can see I'm just kind of picking out the bones and then putting a little bit of paint there, but it's not super accurate. It's just to give the bone itself a slightly different colour compared to the rest of where that skeleton is. To help differentiate it from the rest of it. So yes, that's the plan. Okay. I'm going to have to clean this brush out a lot. One trick I use, Fred, is to apply the wash over the piece and then use a dry brush to remove wash from areas you don't want. Can be tricky, but try to just apply the wash to the skelly will be a challenge. Yes, I'm aware of this. I have been reasonably successful so far. If I use a small enough brush, I can do it. There we go. So I am just kind of painting the highest areas to a large extent on the skeleton. I'm not really trying to... I'm not dry brushing, I'm just letting the paint fall onto the higher areas. So there's a slight differentiation from the rest of the bone that I've painted there. Let's do this hand. Not too much. It's a hot wire cutter for foam. Okay, alright. Now I understand. A hot wire foam. Yeah. Now I get what you're talking about. Let's just pull this across here. Do that. And then the skull. The skull's going to be the hard part. I've got to make sure I don't get this paint in the eyeballs, if I can help it. The top of the skull, definitely. Around the front, around the jawline, down the side here, and it's that collarbone there. Okay. So that's, I think that's almost done that side. And we can probably go under a little bit. Yep, that's fine. So that wasn't that hard to do at all. So if anybody was wondering, oh, how hard is it to do that? No, I'm actually not getting too complicated about this, if you were wondering. Okay, so 2 ridge bones at the bottom where the tailbone is. Go across the spine. Just brush, 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 roughly. Top of the skull here. Is there any more paint left in this thing? Top of the skull is where I want most of the paint to be. Okay. That is that colour done on that one. So I can put that aside. and grab the next one. That was easy, not hard at all. And well, I recently painted 2 skeletons from the fantasy creatures, not D&D scale, but they came out pretty nice. Oh, good, cool. So we're going to do the same thing that I did before with that colour. For those of you who are wondering why I'm still going, and I know I said I would paint for an hour, but I'm kind of enjoying myself now. And as you can see, I kind of turned off my brain to talking about anything in particular. So unless somebody ask me a question, people, ask me a question. You need to give me something to say, because right now I'm just playing. It was funny. It was really funny when somebody said, "Oh, you know, you should talk about this and that." I'm like, but you have no idea how many Star Wars books I have, and that's not just Star Wars Saga. I've got stuff from older versions of the Star Wars game as well, and no matter what they've done with modern Star Wars, there's good and bad in it. I understand. I still love Star Wars as a concept and a place to play, which is why I have no qualms about talking about Star Wars 5e, because Star Wars 5e as a concept and a tool out there, it's really all they've done with Star Wars 5e is they took Star Wars Saga and rewrote it from those books. This is why I've wanted to talk so much about it, because I knew where he got it all from. And they got so much, I mean, and all the stat blocks to a certain extent, particularly the creature ones, they transition so easily. This is why I used to get Star Wars creatures, not just the stat blocks, but also the miniatures, and I'd use them in my Star Wars and my D&D game. I had the white spider show up. I would have rancors. Rancors would definitely be something I'd throw at them. They were like, what the heck? There's a rancor in this game. That's from Star Wars. And I said, yeah, well, not anymore. It is so fun to throw. And I've got a miniature for the rancor too. And it is one of the baddest ass miniatures I've got. Out of everything that I got, it's one of my favourites. I've even got tanks. I got a whole bunch of tanks, Star Wars tanks, and droids, which you may get to see one day. I don't know. We'll see how we go. I don't have a shortage of that sort of stuff at all. I just have a shortage of space to store it all. Okay, so this is the hip bone. And we will just kind of paint it in, roughly. And then along the arm, to the end where the shoulder is, just like that. Well, it's turning out better than I thought it would. I actually was a little worried that this was going to work out looking kind of really shite, but actually it's not too bad at all. And skeletons aren't exactly that hard to paint, are they? Well, they shouldn't be. Shouldn't be hard to paint them. You're really just dealing with off-white. That's about it. And that's going to go underneath, and I need a little bit there for the bone. Yep, cool. We'll do the skull on the side. Let's get the top of it first. Are people liking the fact that I'm putting up a lot of shorts that are just showing off miniatures? I'm kind of curious. I know occasionally I get one that people sort of seem to show a lot of interest in, and other times not very much interest in, which is fine. But I'm just, yeah. I was really shocked when people really liked the Earth Elemental that I'd made. I'm like, I mean, it kind of looks a bit hoary, but a lot of people seem to watch it and like it. It's like, sweet, yeah, easy to please. Yeah. What's your favourite bad mini for Star Wars? My favourite bad mini. I don't know what that means. You mean bad mini, isn't it's a bad mini, or is it a good mini? I used to have Darth Vader. Actually, I think I still have Darth Vader. I did actually lose a lot of those really hard to get characters when my stuff got stolen, because I was unfortunately carrying around a lot of Jedi characters at the time. I don't know why I was doing that, but I was. And so I wound up losing a bunch of Jedi characters that could be used as character miniatures or NPCs, basically. What's the worst one? I don't know if there's a worst one. Some of them are a bit hard to tell what they are. Some of the humanoid races are a little bit hard to tell what they are. But I don't know if there's necessarily one that I think is, my favourite worst one. Okay, that's not too bad. That's looking alright. Pretty happy on top. But I mean, those miniatures I don't have to paint either. They were all pre-painted. Star Wars miniatures were all pre-painted. I think I still have a whole bunch of stuff that I have painted that I've never shown anybody the final result. I'll have to go through my library and have a look. My desk, I have a closed desk from my that was given to me from my grandfather when he passed away on my mother's side, and it's just full of miniatures that I've painted over the years to various levels. Some are complete and some are like half finished, but quite a lot of them are actually done. I just haven't ever shown anybody what the final result was. Should probably post up like a picture or do a little short vertical. Something nice and quick, 15 seconds, and she's give it a spin around so you can have a look at it. Okay. Okay, this is all right. Let's just brush that off a little bit. Oh, and there's a shoulder bone. Oh, there's a shoulder there. I missed that. Okay. Did I miss it on the other one? I probably did. Yeah, I did. Okay, let's just hit it now. How did I miss that? Easy. Not paying enough attention, that's probably what. Okay. All right, so that's 3 down. The good news is that we've got this layer of paint to go on, and then there's one more, which will be the white, to whiten it out. And then really it's just a wash, which I won't be able to do on camera because it will just make a mess. It'll be the paint will be just too new to be able to be putting a wash on. I mean, I did it the other day, but when I was doing it, I was thinking, this is such a bad idea. It could have gone horribly wrong for me. Do you know what I mean? I actually, in the end, the Crota, the La Crota doggy fellas, I actually wound up re-washing it again. Because I was like, oh dear. Yeah, it probably needs another go. So it wound up coming out a lot darker than it was initially. I think that was the right way to go, but you can only tell, I suppose you can only tell when your eyes are good, and my eyes aren't that great, and when the light is good. And yes, I think when I finally put that wash on, the light in my office, which is the one I'm using right now, is supposed to be a pure light. Like it's not supposed to too yellow or too white or anything like that. but I actually struggle to see sometimes under that light. And so natural light is probably going to be a little bit easier for me. Oh, there's a little bit of something. Okay, brush you off. And over the top of the foot, down there, underneath. Can't really see what I'm doing there, I suppose. But it is going on. I think this is working fine. So I have discovered that if I do an edited video, it does worse than anything else on my channel now. So I think what I've done is I've scared off all the people who liked the edited videos that I did on my channel, and the only people are left are the people who like me live streaming. Which was not actually my intention, to be fair. It just came down to time. I'd never actually intended to live stream 6 days a week unless I didn't have a full-time job. And that hasn't actually happened yet. So I pushed everything forward after I built all those classes, and then I've had to rebuild them again, which is just ridiculous. But yeah, magnifying glass. The problem is, and my brother uses magnifying glasses as well, is when I use so for example, my glasses that I got now, they magnify. The problem is that magnification isn't my problem. If I use a magnifying lens of some kind, it doesn't actually help me. Now I know that sounds strange, but whatever's happened to my eyes over time have affected my ability to focus. And so magnifying isn't the solution. It actually messes with my brain a little bit. I remember having talking with the optometrist, and they said, look, we can give you reading glasses, but the problem is when we were looking at the lens for the reading glasses, it's so similar to your current eyes, it seems like we can't improve it much more than what you've got. And I'm like, oh, okay. This is why, one of the reasons why when people say you should read a PDF, and I say actually I need it to be a book, and if it's a book I hope it's got big print, because I will struggle to see it, because I can't just grab a magnifying glass to look at it. It won't solve my problem at all. So yeah, there is a point where obviously your eyes just get so old you can't really do very much, unless of course you're supposed to get something like surgery or something. And I'm not going and paying for surgery on my eyes. But I will pay for my mortgage and get that out of the way. I'd prefer the stability than to have to worry about that sort of thing. Who knows what's going to happen in a few years. In a few years, owning a house may be impossible in New Zealand for everybody. I have no idea. Might be the same around the world for all I know. So yes, I want that security. I don't really want to find myself in a horrible situation where I've got to live off the street. So I'll go with that plan for now. Change the plan if I need to. Okay, let's go down the sides, down the front. It's picking up the paint fine and leaving a few gaps in the lower areas. Cool. So that's working out pretty good. You can probably hardly see the transition. I imagine the transition for you on screen is almost non-existent, but it is there. And I can assure you it's super easy to paint on. This is not hard at all. I do have, I suppose I could show you, I have an old video of my Necrons that I turned into Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminators. I put up one of them, but I've got another one, because I did like 30 of those things. I made 30 of them. There's there's two squads. Is it 2 squads or 3 squads? I think there's two or 3 squads. So I made a whole bunch. So I can probably show those off at some point too, for those of you who are into that sort of thing. Yeah, I like the idea of modifying your Necrons. You probably couldn't take them to a table to play with them though. Same thing around the world, yeah. So my mortgage, at this rate, I might have the mortgage paid off in less than 2 years. And that's just because I'm doing a job that I hate right now. I think that's essentially what's going on. I'm just doing a job that I hate. That's not good for me. It's not good for my health. But it pays enough to get the job done. And as long as inflation doesn't go too high, we can get there. So, yeah. And once that happens, then I free up my time and I can do a lot more. Including fix my house. My house definitely needs a big fix up. There are so many things. Outside needs painting for sure. The inside's a mess, but yeah, outside there's just so much work to be done. Okay. Let's just check the front before I transition to the back. But I'm pretty happy with what I've done so far, so we will go over flip, and I'll just do the tailbone, followed by the spine. We'll just stroke the spine slowly and gently. What's your conspiracy theory? Prepare, cook, and survive. Is there even home ownership will be hard with green taxes or having to convert to green energy and get certified? Yes, this is something I don't think a lot of people have realised, is that those of us who are not making huge quantities of money really can't afford green tax. It's just outside of the realm of reality. I know my own government is, and I would like it to be possible to do so, but as soon as the government included subsidies for electric cars, all the electric car manufacturers put their prices up. And so it completely wiped out any benefit you might have got. Not to mention, nobody in New Zealand, unless you have a shite load of money, spends $40,000 on a car. I've never done that. That's just crazy stuff. You couldn't pay that back fast enough. So, yeah, it ain't great. And I don't doubt that we need to have green tax, but I think the green tax needs to be at the manufacturing level. You know, if you're making stuff like, why are we still making aluminium cans? Anyway, let's go away from the environmental stuff. I don't want to think too much about it if I can help it. I'll deal with it. I deal with it enough in my own life. I don't need to deal with it here in a live stream. I need to chill out. Chill out time. Let's talk about something else. Let me grab the next lot of paint. So we've finished with that colour, which was the skeleton bone, which means we must move on to the white colour. White is very, very white. And the problem with white is it can make things look just a little bit much. But I'm still going to do it. I'm going to use a very fine brush, and I'm going to brush along the ridges, the high ridges. Okay? My intention is not to coat the miniature and a lot of the stuff at all. So that's probably about all I'll need for now. This particular white is quite thin. It's a Vallejo white. I've used it before. Okay. Now, that was that one. Let's go back to the red. I think this is the one I'll do first. And I don't know how this is going to work. Where do I want to start? high ridge. Okay, cool. Less and yep. Okay, and then just brush across those fingers. Cool. So yes, I'm just going to pick out what I want to highlight for now. That's sternum. The ribs, I'll brush across them. Should leave a lot of the paint off it. Cool, there we go, working out well. Oh, I would be cool to add some flaming eyes in the same color as the flames around the skeletons. Maybe applying small dots with a toothpick or something. Yeah, it could. I'm thinking about. Let me think about it. I was tempted to just go with a dark finish for them there myself. Okay. So the wash will hopefully take a lot of the white away that I've put on. So that it's not quite so bright, because right now it looks very bright, doesn't it? And then brush, and do the same thing here. No, not quite enough. Let's do a bit more. And okay. Yep. Let's get the kneecap in. Down the front of the leg. Along the side of the foot. No, it's not coming off. Let's do it again. Sounds good, Jack. Yeah, I'm kind of tempted for the eyes to not be, supernatural glowy eyes. I'm actually tempted for them to be sort of very dark and sort of lifeless looking. Okay, so I did this along here. So I've got to make sure that I put less of this white on than I did the other colour. Otherwise it's going to just go straight over the last colour that I used. And then and we'll just do it across the face. Okay. Collarbone there. Got the collarbone. Let's do a little bit across there. Yep. And the shoulder. Okay. All right. So that is the front. That's the front. Let's wash off the brush, do the back. Right now it kind of doesn't blend together, I totally get it. Oh, we've got a question. Oh, that's good. Let me grab some more water. Oh, bugger it. I have a spillage. Just give me a second. Trying to lift over the cup over the other one, and I wound up spilling water everywhere. I just need a mop up. Give me a second. Almost done. Okay, question. Do you ever crafted something for games? So yes, I do. I have. You're talking about have I crafted terrain? I've made a lot of terrain. I made a castle, I've made trees, I've made a whole bunch of things. I've made rocks, I've made buildings, I've made all sorts of stuff. So when it comes to terrain, I've made heaps. Now, have I made miniatures? Yes, I have. I made an earth elemental. I made an air elemental, which isn't finished. I made a humongous earth elemental as well. So I'm just going to touch the highest ridges of this with the white. I've made a purple worm mouth. I made a gelatinous cube, some grey oozes. I actually made myself a ochre jelly. What else have I made? I've made a mimic. Pretty sure I made a mimic. What else have I made that is floating around here somewhere? I'll tell you what. I'll shoot some vertical shorts of them, and I'll show you all those. So I've made. So at one point, a bunch of people were saying, "God, we can't afford the D&D board games, and you're saying they're the cheapest thing option out there, but nothing's cheap in our country." And so I decided at one point I would make miniatures online as part of my live streams, and so that's what I wound up doing, quite a lot. Let's just make sure this is where it needs to be. Just get this face right. Okay, cool. That's not too bad. That's pretty good. Let's move that out to the side. So yes, I have definitely made miniatures and terrain for my games. It's definitely a thing. It's not easy to do, and I burnt myself multiple times creating stuff like that. All right, so this. Yes, eyes should look like the flaming colour. I'm not going to do that, though. I'm not going to do that. I'd like to see DC, but it's far too expensive to get materials. It works out easier and cost-effective to print off dungeon scenery maps and get 3D printing scenery. Okay. You've modified miniatures? Well, I've modified miniatures. That's easy. Making a miniature from scratch, that's hard. I can tell you that now. It's not an easy process. There's a lot that can go wrong. And I made a whole bunch of things that I wasn't too sure how to do it. I just did it. And that's too much white there. Well done, Fred. That didn't work out well. You've been doing so well so far. Okay, let's do this. It's the hip bone, hip bone, hip bone, and the little tail bit there. It's the spine at the back. All right, cool. The ochre jellies, you've made ochre jellies. You'd like to see them? Well, fine. I'll make sure I always said I would do, like, I put up a photo or a video of it so you could see the final result, and I should just do that. Since there's a bunch of you who do modelling. I mean, you might have noticed I put up a poll to see how many people on my channel actually paint, and there's very few. I mean, most people are now using digital assets. They don't paint miniatures. They don't use miniatures because they're not playing in person. I don't actually run. I either play if I'm game master, I don't use a virtual tabletop. I'll use Theatre of the Mind, but I actually use miniatures in my online games. I actually just lay out the battle mat and get the miniatures out, and it's much faster and easier. I don't have to spend hours figuring out maps or paying for expensive maps. I've got all that stuff already there, so since I've got two webcams, I can just point one webcam at my desk and it's done. I've mentioned this before. And I think the players appreciate that. I know Simon, who's game mastering right now, is struggling and frustrated as anything with the virtual tabletop that he's using. It just never seems to work. It's too hungry for resources, and it's just Roll20. He's just dealing with Roll20, and he's not even using all of its tools. And if he had to get everybody else to figure out how to use it, it would be just appallingly bad. So yeah, I'll be sticking to the miniatures, thank you. Since I've got them, I paid for them, I might as well use them. Okay. Let's get those little fingers in. Yep, that worked out well. And can I get the... No, I can't. I'll need more paint for that. Minis and maps makes great immersion. I don't know what that is. I don't understand what you're trying to say. I've got no idea. You'll have to explain it to me. Immersion. Is it immersion? Immersion. That's the new catchphrase nowadays, isn't it? Immersion. I just do it because it's easier. I don't even care about the immersion factor. My group can't really play in person anymore because some of us have moved so far away, and so we still want to keep playing with each other. And there are still members of the group with really elderly family members, so we're always... It's not like the problem went away, like COVID's still a thing. So we've taken the route of, well, we need to protect those people who need to be protected, and since there are some people who are on the other side of the country, we'll just keep playing online for now. Immersion. Okay, there we go. Roll20 is the only way I can play, but I only DM with minis. Yeah, so for me, it's Theatre of the Mind or it's miniatures. That's it. I'm not going to use... somebody came and tried to teach me how to use a virtual tabletop, and I looked at it and I think, there's so much work. It's so complicated. And I was like, no. One, I got annoyed because there was so much work. I was taking away from what I would normally do with my time. So for me, I've rebelled and I've decided, no, I'm sticking with the miniatures, which is why I still paint them. There's a reason why I'm still painting miniatures, because I still use miniatures. As I mentioned before, I don't play for reasons but work on medieval towns. That's cool, no problems. I'm not really worried about that sort of thing. If you're not playing for whatever reason, that's cool. No skin off my nose. Not everybody's going to be in the right position to do so anyway. There's a few people that used to hang out on the channel, and they've not been able to play for a long time, so they've kind of disappeared, which is kind of sad, since this channel was always about getting everybody playing the game, and I was like, oh. There's rather a lot of barriers, if you ask me, and they're not the barriers that people talk about. The real barriers are not what they think they are. Anyway, let's just keep going. We're getting into the 2-hour frame, but I don't think I'm going to stop. I'm going to finish it. It's not like this white needs to be perfect in terms of its application. If anything, I don't want it to be perfect. What I do want to do is I want to do the back of this little miniature. And there's one more left to do. You've got every mini for Lost Mine of Phandelver. I actually had... Somebody did a Kickstarter and sent me a whole lot of stuff for that. And I had planned to do a whole lot of stuff for him. And as a product of somebody letting me down and not doing the thing that I'd asked them to do, I was not able to fulfill my end of the bargain. And so it all just turned into custard. Another reason why I don't like doing Kickstarters, but not the only reason why I don't like doing Kickstarters, is because there's no guarantee I can fulfill what they would like me to do. Not to mention, I'm not convinced that sponsorship is the answer, because getting people to pay you once you've agreed to do have a sponsor on your channel is actually really hard. People don't pay. And I don't really have a pricing list. My channel gets so few views, I just don't see any point. And it gets less and less every single day. So it's like, I don't even understand why they're trying to do that. But now I do, because now they were never intending to pay me anyway, even when they said they would. So I just won't do them. Screw it. Let everybody else who is actually able to get them to pay their way do it, if they want to do it. Anyway. Yep, that's better. Okay, that's another one whited up. Let's do the next one. The blue flame is your favourite? It's worked pretty well. Yeah, I think the blue flame has worked out pretty well. I agree. Let's put out a bit more white. I'm sending you a message over Discord, DC. You better get a character sorted. Ah, okay. You're going to give him a game, are you? So the Discord is about to lose its Nitro thing, and I'm not going to renew it. So there may be a few features that get lost. I don't know how many members that Nitro allows me to have. So if losing the Nitro account means that I can't have quite so many people on there, I'm probably going to remove people that I've never really talked to or don't know any about. So if you're not a patron or you're not a person who's in the live chat and talks to me quite often, you'll probably find your name disappears. It probably won't matter because, if you never talk to me in chat or you never communicated with me or you were never a patron, it's probably not a big deal. But yes, I'm not going to renew the Nitro subscription. I just don't see any point. But that doesn't mean that the Discord will disappear. It just may change. I just didn't see the benefit of doing anything like that. I didn't really use the features. I use Discord in a very different manner, I guess, compared to other people. And there we go. So this is... My hands aren't working quite so well, so you'll notice the paint's kind of going all over the place a little bit. Okay. Better. Right, let's get control. And down the side. And along the top. Okay, cool. Can I pick out that little spine bit there? Yeah, I can. The ribs. You gotta be really careful. I've messed up so many small brushes by doing this sort of thing before, just painting on small amounts and forgetting to actually clean the brush off often. The last thing you want to try to do is dry brush with a fine tip brush. Okay. Here we go. Finger across there. No, come on you. Give it up. I always forget to check Discord. Yeah. I kind of don't. I can't do that now. Primarily because of the Game Master Roundtable because I've got stuff to organise on there. I mean, the Game Master Roundtable is another reason why a lot of my editing of videos just doesn't happen. And I was looking, did any of you realise that I have about 120 edited videos that I have not released on my channel? That's true. I literally have 120, not live streams, edited videos on my channel that I have not released. They have thumbnails that need to be made, they've got metadata to be done, but that's how many there are. Literally sitting there waiting for me to get around to actually doing that. And part of the problem is that I spend so much time editing the next lot of video stuff that I don't have time to release the stuff I've already made. So if you notice on my holidays that I start releasing a whole lot of old live streams, but I also start releasing a lot of edited videos, it's because they've been sitting there for probably sometimes a year. That's how long some of that stuff sits there. Some people even forget that I even did some of the stuff with them. A lot of them are Game Master Roundtable discussions that I had with people that I just have not had a chance or time to actually release. I think there's even a few there where, you know, they're so old that people have died. They're no longer around, or they no longer do YouTube. Like literally, they're no longer really on YouTube at all. Kind of sad, I realise, people. But hey. The hive brood monster in Mystara sounds like a monster AJ and you would like. Okay, all right. Well, AJ right now is on a bender for his own aliens. So if you're wondering what AJ's doing, that's what he's doing. He said he wasn't going to do adventures, but he is. He's doing adventures now. I said, you should write some adventures and release them. And he said, no. You know, printer's dead, but he is actually working on it. He's a funny guy, man, I'll tell you. He's like, no, I'm not doing that. That's not going to work for me. No. And then he does. But he is actually working on monsters. You just haven't seen a lot of them. It hasn't just been aliens. He has been working on other stuff. He just hasn't released it yet. I think he's probably working on more stuff in the background that's designed around publication that he can turn into video format stuff. I think he's probably doing more than he's ever done before. And you can be guaranteed to see AJ Pickett talking about D&D monsters or fantasy or mythological monsters and not aliens so much on the Game Master Roundtable that we do on Wally DM's channel as a live stream more than anywhere else. Do you know why? Because he loves doing it. Because I pick monsters, and me and Wally pick monsters that aren't Wizards of the Coast property. So he's like, yep, that's me. And so it's easy to get him to do that. And I like doing it because, one, it doesn't really help Wizards of the Coast at all. And we don't have to worry about them. We don't have to use their fan content policy. We don't have to use any of that stuff. So we're like, yee-ha, we'll just do our own thing. And he keeps coming back because of that. And he's probably become more creative recently, I've noticed, as a result of this. He does more of his own stuff rather than just researching somebody else's monsters. And he's got really excited about it, so he keeps doing more and more and more. So, yeah. It's funny how these things work out. Some people just hate that kind of, format because it doesn't do well on YouTube. But in terms of the creative aspect of some things and getting stuff made that you didn't think about doing before, it's been really, really good. It's been good for me, it's been good for Wally, and it's been good for AJ and a couple other people on there as well. So yes, you can expect much more in the future of that sort of stuff. But we were going to shake it up. I thought we'd do something a little bit different too as well in the next couple of months. Things you haven't seen before. Okay, let me just check this face. Neck, spine, face is fine. There's white there, the fingers are done. Okay, sweet. All right, now these aren't done, obviously. Hit the spinal cord. Yeah, I think I did hit the spinal cord. Did I miss it? I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah. A little bit, I probably put a little bit too much paint on the spinal cord as it happens. Stop rolling, you. Stay there. Right. Okay, let's assess. Have a drink of water. And, oh, come on. I can't even see the brush to put it into the little... Come on. You know how you get like one little bit of paint sort of sticks to the brush bristles and you're trying to get it off and like it won't come off? Probably should have something. In the front. I did actually put a little bit... can't you see it? Is it not enough? Yeah, it's probably too much now. It is there. It's showing up. It's just probably not obvious on the screen. By the hips. In the front, by the hips. No. I'm pretty sure it's all there. Yeah, that's good enough. I think that'll be fine. Okay, let me show you what we've got, and then I'll explain what I'll probably do with them later, which will be off screen. And then when I've finished them, I will make I promise I'll do a shorts. I'll do like a 15-second spin around as a short so you can see the final results. And the eyes, I just want them to be sort of black. I don't actually have any black. Somehow my black has vanished. And I suspect my brother may have my black. So I would blacken up the eyes because that's really what I wanted to do in the first place. Let me just see if I can show you what you can see. So one is green, one is red, one is blue. You can see that there's still a bit of work to be done because I will have to darken up certain sections of it. But it's come out all right. The skeletons themselves don't sort of blend well into the actual fire in terms of what I've done. So you can see the back of that one, back of this one, back of this one. I may have put a little bit too much white on the back spine sections. We'll see. But yeah, so that's sort of where I've got out. At least they have got more paint on them than they had before because they were paintless before. They've been sitting around for years with me. Okay, what do you got here, big kid? I finished my painting for today. Slowly but surely. Nice. Well, good. Well done, big kid. All good. It's coming along pretty BC. Just some touch-ups from airbrush. You need to go to the store? Well, I'm probably going to head off. I will be back tomorrow. I'm probably going to paint the Oaken Bolter or the Stone Defender tomorrow. That would be Friday for me. I don't know what day it is for you. Is it Thursday for you guys? Tomorrow. Today would be Wednesday if you're in North America. So yeah, I thought that's not too bad. That's pretty good. So yes. Now you're scared. Now you're scared. Oh my God, he's got his face up. What were you doing? So yeah, first one is probably need to be further back. So yes, I'm going to wash these, but they can't wash now. If I wash them now, this paint is just too soft and it'll just disappear. So I won't do that. It'd be stupid. And then the green one, green and blue. And then apparently people prefer the blue. This is the red one. I may even hit all of the miniatures with a really light dry brush after I've done the wash, just to help pick out all of the details. Hopefully you guys had a good time hanging out with me. I am ready for a bit of a snooze, actually. A snooze would be nice. Maybe even a banana. Kind of feel like a banana right now. Be good. So I just want to say thank you to all of my patrons who support me on Patreon. I want to thank all of you who've been hanging out in the chat, answering the poll and commenting, or just watching. If you're just watching and painting along, sweet. No problems with, I'm all for it. Do that. Absolutely. So yeah, like, what was the poll eventually? Do you think the Rogue in Dungeons & Dragons 5e needs fixing? So no, 37%. I kind of figured that would be kind of like happen. Undecided, 31%. So yes, 18%. Just watching, 12%. So whatever I present for the Rogue has to be pretty convincing for me to be making any changes. I'm sure I can do something you were not expecting or you were hoping for. In any case, wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. If they aren't skeletons and they're not trying to kill you, be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Yeah, slight dry brush with a very light colour after the wash. Yeah, it'll probably happen.